All right, let's get to the mailbag for the week. You can write info@davidpakman.com if you have something to say, a question, a comment, a complaint, a demand for an apology or a retraction, which are very, very frequent on the program. Sometimes we'll also highlight a YouTube comment or a Twitter message or something else. I do want to, I keep getting the question, David, are you getting hit with more anti-Semitism since the Kanye, Nick Fuentes stuff has sort of been mainstreamed? I get a lot of anti-Semitism anyway, but it's definitely higher and more frequent, and people just seem more willing to say certain things. Here's just like one example. Paul wrote on YouTube, David Pakman, shameless Jew who often has a hard on that he is proud of. This idea of a shameless Jew is, it's not like they're using the K word, but this is actually a pretty gross thing, which is the idea that you should be ashamed if you are a Jew, as Paul says here. And a lot of these ideas are very pervasive among the anti-Semitic right. You should be ashamed. You shouldn't leave your house. You shouldn't have a YouTube channel, certainly. You should be hiding your face and hiding out in general. But yes, significant amounts of anti-Semitism since, and I believe as a result of the normalization of such anti-Semitism due to some pretty prominent people, including Kanye. Next message is from Luap, also coming to us from YouTube. Luap says, Pakman, you are a commie. Why do you not move to China? Well, I'm not a communist. I don't speak any Chinese dialect. I don't know anybody in China, and I have no interest in moving to China. Why are you trying to change America to a communist system? I'm not a communist. Just move. MAGA will never let this country change without now these are capitalized just like Trump does, major dust up. Prepare yourself, it is coming. Now, of course, this is an allusion to violence. It's important to understand when folks say, we're going to do a lot to prevent this country from becoming communist. They're talking about violence. They're not talking about signing a petition. They're not talking about a letter writing campaign. They're talking about violence often involving firearms. And now, at the same time, the U.S. isn't actually about to become communist, so I don't really know that anything's going to happen because that's not going on. Let's go next from YouTube over to Facebook. Facebook, where Greg wrote in and said, you are the biggest hypocrite on everything. Democrats are taking the law and order form this great country. People like you are the problem. Typical Democrat. Now, we've talked about the law and order stuff a bunch now. The right loves to say, we are for free speech. We never want to censor or limit speech until they do. And then you go on Truth Social and you see that you're not allowed to post about the January 6th insurrection, depending on what you post, and on and on and on. They're for speech, but not really. Well, they are certainly against regulating businesses, right? Businesses must be allowed to do whatever they want all the time. We're against regulating businesses. But social media platforms, though, should be forced to publish our right-wing messages. Social media platforms should be regulated to be forced to publish our COVID disinformation, but we're against regulating businesses. And then, of course, we get to, we're for law and order. Well, on January 6th, hundreds of your people committed all sorts of different crimes in Washington, D.C. And now your concern isn't, let's make sure we prosecute lawbreakers. It's, they're being treated unfairly. They shouldn't be held in pretrial detention, and on and on and on. All of these are just talking points. They don't mean any of it. They're not really the party of law and order. Jordan wrote in and said, are you a FN idiot? And then they said, here's a suggestion. Go get your brain checked out, you Democrat-loving loser. This will be the last one of this style, and then we'll get on to more substantive stuff. The reason I highlight this one continues to be I'm not a Democrat. I don't care about the Democratic Party. I see the Democratic Party essentially as a corporation whose primary objective is its own self-preservation and self-aggrandizement. I see it as having worthier political goals than the Republican Party, yes, but I'm not a Democrat, and quite frankly, I don't care about the Democratic Party. And yet, I regularly get messages like this, which, by the way, conflict with "you're a communist." The actual communists hate the Democratic Party. They see it as almost indistinguishable from the Republican Party and a tool of all the same special interests. So am I a communist, a group that hates the Democratic Party, or am I a Democrat? I'm actually neither. I'm an unaffiliated, when it comes to political party, social democrat. That's what I am. It's very, very simple. Okay, next message is from Grant. Grant brings up a great question about LGBT community title and says, "Hello, David. I've noticed you've recently started using the term LGBTQ instead of LGBT to refer to the community. I'm curious what inspired you to make the adjustment. Should this be a change that all of us in the progressive movement adopt, or is it simply a personal preference? I'm happy to make a correction in my speech if necessary. Hope you and your loved ones have fully recovered from COVID. Thanks for your hard work and excellent content." I didn't even know. I'm not, in my mind, I still say LGBT, but I guess it is true. I've used LGBTQ to some degree recently. I think part of it may be if I'm reading an article, if we're using as a source an article that says LGBTQ, I will say LGBTQ. I know, I believe the Q means queer, which I think is more of it's a vague term. It's not, oh, well, I'm a lesbian. Okay, so, you're a woman attracted to other women. I think Q is queer and it's a more general term. I'm glad to include it. In my mind, I use the term LGBT. I think everybody knows what community I'm talking about. And certainly whichever term I'm using, I'm not trying to exclude anyone. That's for sure. Okay, here, divergent views among my audience about the Brittany Griner situation. Many of you do not think that she should have been brought home in this prisoner swap. Here's someone, Mike, who wrote in about the clown show and says, "David, Brittany Griner should be compelled to finish her incarceration in an American prison now that she's been released from Russian custody thanks to President Biden." What a clown show. Let's all feel sorry for a jock who deliberately flaunted Russian law. I think you mean flouted, actually. Flouted Russian law, got caught, tried in a Russian court, sentenced, only to be released because of President Biden's negotiations. What a effing joke. Short and pithy enough. Well, it doesn't really make sense that she finish her sentence in the US, because what she did in the US, what she did is differently criminalized than in Russia. So it doesn't really make sense. It's sort of like saying, oh, someone was gay in another country that criminalizes being gay. We got them out, but now they should finish their sentence in the US. Well, in the US, being gay isn't a crime. So that doesn't really make any sense. Now, I do understand people having the view that this was the wrong intervention for Joe Biden to make, that it's actually Paul Whelan who should have been freed, etc. But serve the rest of her sentence here. That doesn't make any sense. Part of why the U.S. intervened was because the sentence was deemed to be unfairly harsh. Okay, Spencer wrote in about religion and says, "Hi, David. Do you think Jews are better people than Christians?" Oh, come on, guys. I don't think they commit very many crimes in the USA, and I've never heard of a Jewish terrorist. I'm sure much of the hate in the USA is from Christians, whereas Jews are more tolerant people. So first of all, I'm against the idea of better people. So no, I don't think Jews are better people than Christians. I think all people are we might see individuals who do immoral things, which we criticize, but the idea of groups of people that are better, this is not the way I think about things. So I would not. No, it's a no from me. Let's just leave it there. It's an interesting message, but one I'm not sure what else to say about. Jay Fron made a YouTube comment and says, well said, David. As a Jew, this is about the Kanye anti-Semitism. Okay. Jay Fron says, well said, David. As a Jew, this at first was goofy, but has quickly become extremely disturbing and honestly frightening. Having Kanye as a massive cultural figure and influence in society, I see many people now repeating Kanye's rhetoric, and I'm very worried this will just continue to escalate. Yeah, there's a lot of people who are arguing, and sometimes they'll write in, who cares what a musical artist and designer, clothing designer, Kanye, says about Jews? Just don't pay any attention. Just ignore him. That's it. Just ignore him. But the unfortunate reality is, not only does Kanye have a very large megaphone, not because of the coverage of his anti-Semitism, but because of his own megaphone, but also a lot of the people that are hearing his message about Jews are people who are a much blanker slate. Folks that listen to like my show, for example, are probably aware of the history of anti-Semitism, and they've sort of been inoculated to it because they already understand a lot of these talking points and anti-Semitism. Imagine that you aren't familiar with that history, and suddenly Kanye, a musical artist you admire, or maybe a clothing designer, you really like the pants that he designed or something like that, or the boots, I don't know. You don't really have any protection against this disinformation. And Kanye's saying the Jews are controlling this and they're conspiring to control that. And they did this bad thing to me. And a Jewish doctor tried to get me killed by giving me medication, all this stuff. That starts to become your worldview. So I actually do think it is very important to take it head on and to do everything we can to prevent Kanye from becoming the authority on Jews in the minds of many of these people. That's my view. I think Jay Fron is saying something very similar. We have such a great bonus show for you today. Sign up at joinpakman.com, get instant access, and we will see you then with the coupon code 24 starts now. Because it did. 24 is off and running. We will see you then.